guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We are here at beautiful Notre Dame University in South Bend, Indiana, bringing you our 2019 Notre Dame football predictions. And as you can see behind us, we have the famous touchdown Jesus, and I couldn't think of a better place to bring you our 2019 Notre Dame football predictions. Last year, the Fighting Irish went undefeated and made the college football playoff before losing by 27 points to the hands of the eventual national champions, Clemson Tigers. This year, Notre Dame has a solid chance to repeat and make the college football playoff once again, but the schedule in 2019 is much more difficult, and we'll get to that in a second. But everything for the Fighting Irish relies on the play of their star quarterback, Ian Book. He wasn't even the starter last year in 2018, but by week 4, Brian Kelly named him starter, and you saw a drastic change in their offense, scoring 56 points in the first start for Book, and that really spearheaded the rest of the season for the Fighting Irish, leading them to a 12-0 perfect season. He returns 2 of his top wide receivers. Yes, they lose Miles Boykin, but they do bring back Chase Claypool, and they do bring back Chris Fink. I don't expect much of a drop in production on the offensive side of the ball, especially with the return of Book, the Fighting Irish finally finding that quarterback that will deliver. On defense, though, their strength will be in their secondary and on the defensive line. Last year, the Fighting Irish just allowed an average of 18.2 points per game. That was their best mark since 2012, when they allowed just 12.8 points per game. And also, it should be added, the same year that they went undefeated, the last year that they went undefeated and made the national championship. So we're going to kick things off here with a game against Louisville on the road. And this is an intriguing matchup because this will be the first game of the Scott Satterfield era with the Louisville Cardinals. Now, Louisville was absolutely abysmal last year, winning just 2 games, wasn't really competitive in any of their games that they played against, and the games that they won against weak opponents were not pretty at all. This will be, I think, a surefire victory for Notre Dame, even though it is on the road, even though things will be exciting for a new era of Cardinals football. I don't think they have the team yet to beat the Fighting Irish, who once again are hungry for a college football playoff berth. They go on the road and defeat the Cardinals in week 1. They get that bye week early on in the season, and I'm not a fan of this bye week. I know they get 2 of them, but only in week 2, not going to be favorable for the Fighting Irish. They get that bye week, though, come back home for their first home game on the 14th, beat New Mexico, and then on September 21st, that is the game that I think a lot of people have circled on their calendars, a game on the road against Georgia. And last year, or two years ago, Georgia came here to South Bend, to Notre Dame, and beat the Fighting Irish 20-19 in an absolute thriller. And I think it was at that point we knew that Georgia football was back, that Kirby Smart had the Bulldogs back in the national title and the national conversation. This year going to Athens is not going to be easy. It's one of the most difficult places to play in the SEC, maybe even the entire nation. And Georgia, like Notre Dame, looking to make a trip to the college football playoff. The Bulldogs return Jake Fromm, another great quarterback, one of the best in the entire nation. Return a very solid defense, as always led by under Kirby Smart. Expect this game to be close. Expect it to be very similar to the game that was here 2 years ago in South Bend. But Georgia will get the win. I think home field advantage plays a huge role in this one, and their defense is able to force enough mistakes out of Ian Book in this offense. Georgia gets the win. Notre Dame drops their first game of the season, 2-1, going into the final week of September when they face off against Virginia. Now, the Cavaliers are legit contenders in the ACC this year, especially in that Coastal Division. I think they're actually the favorite for most people in the Coastal Division, even though we have Miami winning that division in 2019. But Bryce Perkins is back at quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, could very well give this Notre Dame defense some struggles as a dual-threat quarterback. And keep in mind, their secondary is probably one of the best in the entire nation. Bronco Mendenhall has done a phenomenal job building this Cavaliers program up and making them title contenders, at least in the ACC, but not well enough to come on the road and beat Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish get a key victory over a good Virginia team and move to 3-1. Then they move to 4-1 with an easy win over Bowling Green. We're not too concerned about that. And then they come back home, remain at home to face off against USC. And last year when they faced off against the Trojans, they nearly got upset, only winning 24-17 at the Coliseum. And this USC team is going to be much better, I think, than the 5-7 record that they had last year. Clay Helton is going to be fighting for his job every single week in 2019. They now have JT Daniels at quarterback. I know he started last year, but he'll even take bigger strides in 2019, especially under Graham Harrell's new air raid offense. But last time here in South Bend, Notre Dame just annihilated the Trojans. I don't think they beat them by, 35 last time, but I do think they win this game by at least 2 possessions. USC is getting there, but not in 2019, especially with still a young team. Notre Dame gets a win over their rival and the Trojans. And they are still just a one-loss team, now sitting at 5-1 going into their last bye week, still somewhat early going into their game against Michigan on October 26th. And you couldn't have asked for a better bye week for the Fighting Irish, going up against another major rival in the Wolverines. Last year here in South Bend, Notre Dame defeated Michigan 24-17. That was a year that everybody thought Michigan was seriously a college football playoff contender, a Big Ten title contender, and this year those expectations are even bigger, as this is the year that Michigan has to win the Big Ten, has to make the college football playoff. If they don't do it in 2019, it may never happen for Jim Harbaugh and his squad. The Wolverines, with this game being at home, with them having one of the best offenses that they've ever had under Jim Harbaugh, and with the defense remaining a strength as always, I think that they get this win over Notre Dame. Revenge will also be a factor in this game, so despite having a week of rest, despite having a week of preparation to face off against the Wolverines, I think they fall to Michigan at the Big House. So another loss for Notre Dame, their second of the season, and you can't help but wonder if this loss against Michigan is going to take Notre Dame out of the college football playoff discussion. Last year they went 12-0, and people were still criticizing them getting into the playoff. This year, even with games on the road against Georgia, Michigan, and Stanford, people will question whether or not they deserve to get into the playoff, especially if they can only win 2 of those games. So 1 loss could prevent Notre Dame from getting in, 2 may very well do the job. But they do bounce back with a win against Virginia Tech at home. I like this Hokies defense. I like it way better than they were last year. They struggled last year due to injuries. It was one of the worst defenses they've ever had under Bud Foster. It will improve greatly in 2019. But once again, not enough to come into South Bend, where I think it's a very difficult place to play, and beat the Fighting Irish. They beat the Hokies at home, bounce back after a tough Michigan loss. Then they go on the road against Duke, and I think this final stretch in November is very, very favorable for Notre Dame. Virginia Tech, a team that struggled last year, yes, they'll improve in 2019, but maybe not that much. Duke loses their star quarterback in Daniel Jones. They bring in Quentin Harris, who I think will do a fine job, especially with David Cutcliffe as their head coach, quarterback whisperer. But the defense does have some struggles, and if Quentin Harris doesn't live up to the hype, it's not going to be very good for Duke. Well, Notre Dame goes on the road and defeats the Blue Devils. They come back home to face off against Navy. And this game against the Midshipmen has always been a battle for the Fighting Irish. Even last year, I know they won by a couple possessions, but it was, I think, closer than some people expected. Navy, once again, though, will struggle in 2019, which is very uncharacteristic for the Midshipmen. But last year went just 3-10. I don't expect that huge of an improvement in 2019. I think they take fairly easy care of Navy, whose offense is always difficult to stop. But I think Notre Dame's defense gets the job done. Then Boston College and Stanford to close out the year. The Eagles will boast a very solid offense and will really test this Notre Dame linebacking core and defensive line, as they will boast one of the best running backs in the ACC in A.J. Dillon. If Notre Dame can't stop him, it could be a shocking home loss for the Fighting Irish. Boston College also usually boasts a pretty decent defense under Steve Adazio, but home field advantage and Boston College's streak of continuous 7-win seasons will pretty much prevent Boston College from coming in here and winning this game. I think Notre Dame by far owns the talent edge. They beat the Eagles. They are 1 win away from another 10-win season for Notre Dame on the road against Stanford, a place they have not won since 2007. Also, in the past 10 meetings since 2009, Notre Dame has only beaten Stanford 3 times. That did include a win last year, of course, going undefeated and taking fairly easy care of the Cardinal. This year, Stanford, very difficult place to play, no doubt in my mind. But this year, they're going to have to rely heavily on the pass. They lose Bryce Love. They're going to have to rely a lot on KJ Costello. David Shaw usually has a pretty decent defense with the Cardinals. I don't know if it's going to be as up to par as it has been in years past. This game, even though it is on the road, even though it closes out the year, second straight year they'll be closing out the season out in California, I think Notre Dame escapes with a close win over the Cardinal. And they finish the season 10-2. And hopefully you can see our record projections here. Coming out here in the rain was not characteristic, but we still are going to be dedicated to bring you some of the best predictions on YouTube, some of the best predictions across the college football nation. So we have Notre Dame here live from South Bend going 10-2 in 2019. Nothing to frown about at all if you are a Notre Dame fan. A chance at an 11-win season. Very difficult schedule though. Road games against Georgia, Michigan, and Stanford will certainly define this season for the Fighting Irish. Whether or not they can get back and make a return trip to the college football playoff remains to be seen. If they pull off an upset against Michigan or Georgia, I think they can make a very strong case to make a second trip, back-to-back trips to the playoff. But we'll have to wait and find out. Brian Kelly has his squad ready to go, and I can't wait to see what the Fighting Irish do here in South Bend at Notre Dame University. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our expert picks in our newsletter. Our expert picks are just $30, and you will receive every single one of our college football spread picks for the 2019 season. I can promise you, you do not want to pass that opportunity up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.